Hello everybody, welcome back to another live coding session today on YouTube. So today I'm gonna write some tests for the components that we built last week. So I will start with a small recap of last week. Just in a minute show you what we've built last week. So here we have Firefox, and we've built 3 Vue.js components. The first one is a collection. So this is a form where you can add multiple input elements, and if you value to something that really doesn't matter, and you send the form, it remembers that state. It gives you the validation error. So yeah, just a simple collection component. Under the hood, we've got a file input component. So whenever you choose a file, for example, this dummy.pdf, we have a paragraph element that shows the file name, because with file input elements, you probably want to add an overlay on top of it, and you want to know the file name, the attached file. So that's the second example. And the third example is a password generator that just generates a random password every time you click on this button. And these 3 components are renderless components. So the templates and the styling is not within the Vue component, but within the Blade template. So let me show you. Here we've got the 3 Vue components: collection, file inputs, and password generator. And then in the views folder, we have a collection Blade file. So here you can see the Vue component. This is the stuff we built last week. And you can see the same in the file Blade template. So here we've got a file input, and whenever we change it, so actually whenever someone attaches a file to it, we have a paragraph that shows the file name, and here's the password generator. So we've got a text input, and whenever someone clicks this button, it hits this generate method, and then we set the value to the newly generated password. So this works fine, but now we're gonna write tests. So if you want to follow along, this Laravel application is available on GitHub. You can find the link in the comments. So this is just the boilerplate standard Laravel 8 application with Vue. So we're running Laravel mix to bundle the Vue components into this app.js file, the usual stuff. So today I want to show you 2 ways to test these components. So first, let's start with JavaScript. There is a library out there, and I think this is the official way to test Vue components, and this is called Vue Test Utilities. So this is something that you can run with Jest, or with I think they have support for other test runners as well, Karma, Mocha, Webpack, but we just gonna start with Jest because that's the recommended way to do it. So let's see. First of all, we need the test utils and Vue Jest. So let's go to the terminal, open a new screen, and I'm using Yarn, but you can use npm as well, whatever you like. Add, and then these 2 dependencies, and add the dev dependencies. So that's gonna run for a second. And by the way, you will see that this is not installing Jest. which is strange, I think, but it's true. There's no Jest, so let's install that as well. Yarn at Jest dev. And in the meantime, let's go to the documentation. So you need to tell Jest to transform .vue files using Vue test. So we can copy this to the package.json file. You can do it in a standalone Jest config file as well, but we already have a package.json file, so let's use that one. Within here, let's copy it and let's remove the comments because JSON does not support comments. And then we need Babel as well because we are importing single file Vue components. That's what we're doing. So this stuff as well, which is a lot, but you only have to set it up once, so shouldn't be a problem. Yarn add all that stuff to the development dependencies. And let's see what else we have to do. We need to add an auto transform key. So we can do that. Transform not only Vue files, but also JS files. And then we need to create a Babel config file. But these can also be added to package.json. So that's even better. So everything is installed. Yeah, this seems fine. So now we need to add the script. Well, that's not in the documentation, but I can show you. So we can add a script. It's called test, and that script just calls Jest. So now when we run, let's clear this. When we run test, it should run Jest, and it's doing that. So of course it fails because it can't find any test. So let's write our first test. Let's go back to the documentation, guides. So this is an example test. Let's start with creating one. So in this test directory that comes with Laravel, let's add a directory, a Vue folder. And we call this test collection test. And I think it's common in JavaScript to do it like this, .spec.js. And let's copy this stuff to see if it works at all. Oops. And run Jest test again. So now it found this collection test. That's nice, and it works. We have one passed test. We've got green, so our test runner is working. So that's a good way to start, I guess. So let's see. Let's go to the test, and what it is doing here is it's mounting this component. So here we have the test displays message. So it mounts this component with a property, a message, hello world. And then we have this expect API that checks if the text of the template contains hello world. So this is a really simple test, but it shows you how to mount a component. So normally we would do something like a message component and then give it that message. So this stuff, what you're doing here, is now over here. So this works, but of course we need to start with our own component. So that's the component. Let's import it. And let's get rid of this comment. Import collection from, let's see, where do we need to go? Resources, JS, then collection.vue, I guess. Let's get rid of the message component. And let's mount our own component. We don't need properties for now. Let's comment as well. Maybe not assert anything yet. Let's just dump this wrapper thing and see if the import works. It fails because it doesn't know how to handle the scope slot. We will see that in a minute. But at least it did import the collection component. Because this right here, this is from the collection component. You can see the push method right here. So the import did work, but we are testing renderless components, not the usual component with a template and a styling. So somehow we need to give the component this stuff right here, the scope slot. And there is a way to do this. So we need not props data, but also scoped slots. And we give it that default. Oh, sorry. With the props. And let's see. If we run it again, hopefully it won't fail. So yeah, it did dump something in the log. Of course it passed because we didn't assert anything. So this kind of works. But now, how do we get access to the props? Because, for example, we want to test the push method. So the collection has this push method. So somehow we want to do something props.push and then assert that something was pushed to the array, to the collection. So what we could do is add a new variable, which we call slot props maybe. And then within this method, we to props. So this now references this. And instead of dumping the wrapper, let's dump the slot props. And here they are. So now we have items, push, and put. The three things, the three keys, we are giving the default scope slot in our component. So yeah, this works. This is cool. So let's update this. We could do something like test, maybe collection. It can push things, but there's also a describe method. So this is another way to do it. We're going to describe the collection component and then add a callback. And then instead of test, we can use it. So maybe something like it can push an item to the collection. So let's start with expecting we don't have any items. So expect, and then we're going to use the slot props dot items, and then to equal an empty array. Let's get rid of this, and let's run the test. And we got green. So now we've got this nice this nice output instead of this. We've got it grouped by the thing we are describing. So collection can push an item to the collection. Seems nice to me. So now let's see if we can push an item to the collection. So slot props dot push, and then maybe a test. And then we expect this to be an array with test. So let's run it again. And I think this is gonna fail. It does fail. So the array is still empty. And that's because this funny thing that the slot props change after the next tick. So Vue has this this idea of, you've probably seen that before if you're writing Vue components. So let's introduce a next tick, but for that we need Vue. So Vue from Vue, and then after we've pushed this thing, and after Vue has done its thing, we expect at the next tick that the array contains the test item. So let's run it again. Let's see if I didn't make a mistake. And now we've got green again. So this works. This is nice. Let's describe another feature, because we can put item as well. So it can put an item to the collection at a position. So we're gonna push test, and then maybe test. Let's see what we're gonna push. Well, let's change test with Laravel. We're gonna push Laravel. We're gonna push bootstrap, and then we're gonna use the put method, and then at key 1 we're gonna put tailwind. So now we're expecting the array to be Laravel and then tailwind. So let's see. Yep, another test that works. And I think this collection component has one more feature. And that feature is that we can define a default item property. Items, sorry. So we can set the default. So let's do that. It can have a default array of items. So now within this props data, We're gonna give it an array default, and let's start with Laravel. So now we expect this Laravel and not empty. But again, I think we need to put this in the next tick. Let's see. Yeah, it's still empty. So we need this to be here. Save it. Run it again. And now it works. So now all features of this collection component has been tested. And of course, you can maybe write a helper method for this, or introduce before each. Let me show you. Before each. So within this describe callback, you can do before each. So you can instantiate the Vue component before each test is run. So we're not going to do that now, but you get the idea. So let's move on to the next component, which is the file input component. So we're going to add another test. File input test. And I'm going to be lazy and just copy over this whole thing and replace collection with file input. So what is it this thing does? It can grab the file name from the attached file. So we are not going to mount the collection, but the file input. And the file input doesn't have props at all. So we're going to remove that one. And to start, we're going to expect that the file name is null. So expect, I think we can do something like to be null, but I'm not sure. Let's get rid of this. And let's see if we can run just this test alone. Because we don't need to run the collection test every time. So yeah, this works. We don't have code completion for expect. We could fix that by importing expect. So I think we could do import expect from expect. And then, oops, we might have code completion. Yeah. So let's see. The file input has only one method, and that is changed. So we need to give it an event, but we don't have a browser and we don't have a form. So we're just going to mark this this object. So we are interested in the event target files, which is an array, and we are only interested in the name key. So this might feel as event. Let's see, we have a target files, which is an array, and then we are interested in a name. So let's say the name is dummy.pdf. And let's give the event to the change method. And then again, at the next tick, we expect the file name to be dummy.pdf. So let's run it. Ooh. Oh, maybe we don't need the $sign. No, we don't need it. My bad. And yeah, we have green. So that's nice. There's a little check here if the file really contains, or if the files array really contains a file. And otherwise, it's so maybe maybe if we give it an empty files array, we should expect it to be null again. So yeah, you probably should write 2 tests for this, but it's just a demo. No, it's still dummy.pdf. So why is that? Maybe we should write 2 tests for this. Oops. I'm not sure, maybe this thing just doesn't work. Target files. Oh, this thing is failing. Oh, yeah. We need to wrap it within this tick. So you definitely want to write 2 tests for this. But they should make it green again. Yeah, so now we're back at green. And let's move on to the last component, which is the password generator. So again, I'm gonna be lazy and copy over the start of this test. And let's create a new test. Password generator test.spec.js. So again, I'm gonna replace the file input component with the password generator. And we are gonna test that it can generate a random password. So we are mounting the component again. We are grabbing the props slot, scope slot, and the password generator only has one method. That's the generate method. So to start, we expect the password to be null. So let's start with that. Expect password to be null. And then we're gonna call the generate password method. Oops. And then again in the next tick, we expect slot props password to, let's see, to have length. Sure. Of 16. I don't know if this works. I've never used this before. So let's see. Let's clear yarn test and then only the password generator test. Doesn't work because generate password is not a function, and that's correct because I named it generate. And now we're at green. So this really doesn't test the strength of the password. So you probably should extract this into its own JavaScript file and write a test for this. But we just want to test that if this generate method is called, that this password is set. And that's what we're testing here. So yeah, that's it for the JavaScript part. So now when we run yarn test, it should run all 3 tests. Yeah, it found them. And yeah, within 4 seconds, we've run 5 tests. So that's nice. That's one way to do it. So let's close stuff. The next thing I want to show you is how to do this with Laravel Dusk. So the Vue test utils, this stuff right here, this is really unit testing. And with Laravel Dusk, we can do integration tests or browser tests or however you want to call it. So let's install Dusk. This is probably going to take a while because it also needs to download the Chrome binary. Let's go back to the documentation. We need to run Dusk install. And we need to set the app URL. I'm not sure if I did that correctly. So we can do that while Dusk is installing. So nope, I didn't do that. So this should be blade renderless Vue.js.test. Oh, it's still downloading. This probably gonna take a while because I'm streaming as well, so the internet is slow. What more do we need? So we don't need this stuff. Browsers. No, we should really wait for Dusk to install. Oh, it did. That's nice. So now we can run PHP artisan Dusk install. Oh, it's only now going to download the Chrome binary. Faster than I expected. So let's see. We've got a new browser folder in the test folder with an example test. We've got a Dusk test case. And let's run it to see if everything works. So instead of PHP artisan, I have an alias for that. That's called art. So art Dusk. Let's see what it does. It did run, but it did not find the Laravel. Yeah, of course, because we don't have it. So in the home page, we don't have Laravel, so let's expect we have a collection example somewhere in that page. And now we have green. So by default, this runs headless, but you can remove that as well, which I'm going to do for now. And then when you run it, it will open Chrome, so you can see what's happening. So you could do that. I always like that. Yeah, let's leave it for now. So let's start with our first test. Generate test. So Dusk has a make command. Dusk make, and we're gonna name this collection test. Let's see. Collection test. So what are we testing here? That we can add multiple email addresses, right? So let's open the collection example. And one thing we want to test is this add more button. So let's start with going to the collection page. And then we want to assert that we have only one input. So how are we going to grab this element? Browser elements. And then we need to give it a selector. And I'm going to give it the input. Yeah, I'm going to give it the input with a type of text. So this should be one element, right, to start with. And then we hit the add more button that we can call with press. So whenever we click on add more, we expect two elements. So let's run it. Our Dusk test browser collection test. Yeah, seems to work. So that's nice. And I'm not a fan of this this way to define tests. So I have a template in Visual Code. That uses the it method name. So it can add more elements, more input elements by clicking the add more button. And then there's another thing we need to test is that it doesn't lose data when we add another element. So let's copy this stuff. It doesn't lose the or data. It doesn't lose state when we add a new input element. So when we the collection page, we're gonna type something in the input field, which we should give the name to this method. So the first email element, well, let's do something like info. Yeah, and then we press the add more button. Let's see what we can do. Dusk has this thing where you can interact with Vue. So we can do something like assert Vue. Yeah, let's do that. So for this, I'm gonna add one more, and then I'm gonna type something in the second element. So instead of info, let's go with my name. So now we have two input elements with two different email addresses. And let's assert Vue. And this takes 3 arguments. Let's look it up in the documentation. Assert Vue. So we need to give it the key of the data, the value we're expecting, and then we need to reference the component. And we can do that with the Dusk selector. So yeah, let's do that. Let's open the collection blade file. And then let's add a Dusk selector. So I'm going to call this one collection component and copy it. That should be the last argument. And don't forget the add, otherwise it won't work. So we expect items to be the first item and then the second item. Let's see if this works, and then I'll explain it a bit more. Yeah, it does work, so that's nice. So what are we doing here? We visit the collection page, which is this page. So let's refresh it. We are typing something in the first element, we're adding one more, and then we type something else in the second element, and then we're doing this assertion, so expecting the items key from this collection component to be an array with these two items. And if we open the DevTools, you can see that here. So we have a collection, and let's do the thing we are testing. So let's get rid of this blue thing. Info, I'm going to add more than my name. And then I think we need to maybe refresh it, but you get the idea. We are expecting the items key to be info and my name. So that's what we're doing right here. And maybe we can test the validation as well. So this form needs 4 email addresses. Let me show you. So when I hit send, you've got a bunch of errors. We need at least 4 items, and the first, second, and the third email address are not valid. So we can build a little test for that. It gives the collection the old data when the validation fails. So again, we can do exactly the same. Go to the page, fill in 2 email addresses, and then we're gonna press send form. I think that's how I call it. Yeah, send form. And I'm gonna grab this this line of text. I think we could do assert C. We need to see this validation error. And again, we asserting that the items are still those 2 email addresses. So let's run it. If you want to run one single test, you can use this filter argument. So PHP artisan Dusk filter, and then give it the name of the test you want to run. Yeah, that works. So that's nice. That's it for the collection component. Let's move on to the file input component. Yeah. Let's make some room. Artisan Dusk make file input test. And we can close all this stuff. Remove this notation for it. So we could do something like it can attach a file and show the name of the file. So when we visit the file route, this one, we need to attach a file to the field, and I forgot what field name we went with. It's attachment. So in the attachment field, we want to attach a file, and I already prepared a file. Here I've got a dummy PDF. So we could do something like, you know what? Let's move this one. No. Current directory. Move one level, and then dummy.pdf. So we've attached the file, and then we need to make sure that in the paragraph we are seeing dummy.pdf. So assert in or see in the paragraph, we need dummy.pdf. Let's see if this works. Oops, not Dusk. Browser. And then file input test. Yeah, it works. So we can, let's do a funny thing. We can maybe add a little pause in here. So you can see that it's really doing its thing. So with only one component to test, one left, and that's the password generator. So let's generate a new test again. Dusk make password generator test without .php. And then we're gonna name this. It can generate a random password. That's it. So we need to visit the password page. And then when we hit generate password, we should expect this to be something. So let's see how we can test this. Visit password, press generate password. Let's see what we have. Assert input value. Well, we can't assert the value because we don't know, because it's random. So let's go to the source code. So this is just using a assert equals PHP unit method, and it can evaluate or it can get the input by calling the input value. So let's do that. So we're visiting the page, we're generating a password, and then we can grab the password, generated password equals this input value or browser input value. And what was the field called? Password. So now we can expect, oh sorry, assert length maybe, is that a thing? string size, or maybe you can use count. I don't know if that works on strings. I guess it does. So we're expecting a generated password that's made out of 16 characters. So let's see if this works. I must admit I'm not sure. Password. Nope, it does not, because a string is not countable. So let's do it another way. Assert equals, and then get the length of the string, and then expect that to be 16. Yep, we got green. Another thing we could do is maybe generate another password. So we're gonna hit that button again, generate password, and then we're gonna grab it again. What we're gonna call this next generated password. And let's expect it's different from the previous one. So expect not equal the next generated password and the first one. And also let's add a pause. And run it again. And again, green. So we are expecting the length of the password to be 16. And when you hit the generate password button again, we are making sure that the new password is not the same as the previous one. So let's remove the pause again. And of course, you can run the complete test, the test suite, by just calling PHP artisan Dusk. So now it's running these 3 components. And of course, we are seeing this because I've removed the headless flag from the Chrome driver. So let me show you one more time. In the Dusk test case, by default, this is headless. So now when you run it, you won't see a Chrome instance running, but it does run. And it's a bit faster as well. So not headless is nice when you're writing the test and maybe add a pause or want to see what's going on. But when you're running this in a CI environment, just always go for headless. Of course, I think you even can't do it otherwise. So I think that's it for today. We've made 2 test suites, each containing 3 tests. So we started with a few unit tests, collection tests, file input tests, and the password generator test. And we are running this with Jest. And then we've built more or less the same test, but instead of unit testing this is more of an integration test where we are really typing something into the input fields, and we are really attaching a file to the file input component instead of mocking that event. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I will upload this to GitHub again in the same repository as last week. So you got the complete set of renderless components, the stuff right here, the collection one, file input one, and the password generator. We've got the blade views that uses those blade components. So for example, in the collection blade file, where you're using this view component, we've got a Vue test suite, unit tests for those three, and we've got a Dusk test suite for those three. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Stay safe and have fun. Bye bye.